take advantage of that mousiness? Probably not. I would tell you to, hey, speak up. Tell me what you want. Let's get this game on. But there are others who will see that mousiness and take advantage of it. And that woman played the part. She's like, no, I'm speaking up. And this man was like gravitating because he probably was used to a lot of women just going, okay, all right, I'm okay. And what a lot of women have to know that the world is craving for your empowerment. It's craving for you to stand up and say, no, Limitations of Black life.
Limitations of Black life. Welcome to it.
Limitations of Black life. Welcome to it. As he just said, there's an echo in here, and this echo says,
The white shadow.
The white shadow. We are talking about a fantastic movie that we didn't only watch once, we watched twice in two different movies. Two different movies. Here I am. Two different movies. One in 1930. What was the first one? 1934. The second one was 1959. You see, this is why we're co-toting. He starts around.
Well, because she has one half of a brain and I have the other half of a brain together.
But we suggest that you watch
Lean your head. There you go.
This way. There you go. I can do half and half. Okay, hold on.
There you go.
Half and half.
We're not high. We're But yes, we're talking about two films of the same title.
Yes.
Imitation of Life, which after watching both of them and based on a beautiful, one of her choicest malaprops of QueenB, we decided to call them Limitations of Black life because it's really what they're about.
Yes, that's really what they're about. And it's, without giving away any of the movie, it's such a wonderful message for a group that we really don't represent in everyday society. And, the term is called passing. Have you heard anything about you know what passing means?
We're not talking gas.
No, we're not talking about gas. We're not talking about school subjects. It's about a time, or even now, it's been around since day one, where people who have very, very, very light skin pass as white, because even though they come from very dark parents, like maybe me, but when they are born, they could pass as white. And back in the day when racial issues were at the forefront, it behooved people to take on the idea of passing so they wouldn't they can migrate through the social heaviness that was at the time. And as being a Black woman, I grew up with a lot of little girls and little boys. If they chose to pass, they passed, because in our community, they were, from my perspective, they were deemed as people who had more opportunity because of the lighter skin. This movie takes it a step further and looks into the life of two women who meet and have completely separate lives, but one has a child that could pass, and we just follow the emotional turmoil that this wonderful energy has to go through, and it validates her story, and that's something that we really need to acknowledge in this movie.
Well, and the fact that we never talk about passing as a cultural dialogue, whether it is Black people who are light-skinned passing for white, or whether it is Indigenous people who are able to pass for white, or if it is Jewish people who passed for white to get into the country clubs and to get better jobs. And this is an issue that we have not talked a lot about culturally.
Right.
And yet there have been two major Hollywood productions about this subject. And it's not just about passing, to be fair. Both of the tales, even though it's based on the same book, and incidentally, the links to the films are in the undercarriage below, and so you can go and watch them. We always put the links in the previous week's undercarriage because we want you to watch the movie so that you can comment on it with us, and you can experience this with us. We launch
Right.
as a premiere, and that means that you can comment all the way through as we're rolling. So if you can, for next week's film, go down into the undercarriage, watch the film before Monday, and we can talk about it, right? Both of the films center around two single women, widowed, each of them with an only child, a daughter. One woman is white, the other woman is black. The 1934 version, with Claudette Colbert, who was box office gold at that time, and Louise Beavers, who plays Delilah, who is a simple woman from the South who finds herself in a northern city and is mistaken in the address that she goes to apply for a housekeeping position. Nobody will take her because she's a single mother with a child, and a black single mother with a child in 1934 to boot, right? This is only how many years from the emancipation of enslaved people in America? Not that long, right? So we were talking about how the black actors, especially the older ones, are either the children of enslaved people or were enslaved themselves and made their way somehow into the movies, which is just, I want to see that story, but you can read it on their faces.
Right.
And, there are, talk about this, QueenB, your impressions, because you hadn't been familiar with the genres of the early 30s too much.
Right.
And especially when it comes to race discussions and relationships. And I think that this film is groundbreaking on a lot of levels.
Right.
Not only that it sort of lifts the veil on the journey of from childhood into adulthood of a light-skinned black girl. Right. And we should say too that even though the stories are very different in the two movies, the foundational story changes. The actress who played the passing daughter in the 1934 version, Fredi Washington, who is geniusly brilliant.
She
and
is.
The black actress, a light actress. And I'm sure they lightened her up even more for the effect.
I can imagine, yes.
But the actress who played the same character in 1959 was played by a white actress.
Right. And you see, it's funny how you said that, in the 1959 version, what was the reasoning behind not finding someone who really, they picked a white girl this time, right? And when, thank you, Henry C, for giving me that question, by the way. I really found this movie interesting from my perspective because growing up as a little girl, I have to say I wanted to be a little white girl. I truly did, because I know how I was perceived by everybody else as being dark. And for some reason, when I was little, being dark meant dirty, ganky, poor. It meant all these things. So the characters that played the passing daughter that could pass, I feel them. I feel their pain. I feel their fear. I feel that they want to be included in life. And what extent would you go to be included in your life, into your own life, into included into society? And it's not just passing those who are of a lighter skin color. It does for so many, even, and it also plays to how we need to start including people, inclusion, and opening the stage for life. Because even people who are considered, I think the correct term is little person, this world is not necessarily groomed for them. They have to really find a way to get into this world that is for tall people, and
not
this
designed for them.
It's not designed for them, and I think that's how the woman, the idea of passing, it makes you feel this world wasn't designed for dark-skinned people as the movie plays, because this girl wants to pass. She doesn't even want to acknowledge that her mother is a beautiful dark-skinned woman. And the mother, oh my gosh, what I loved about the mother being a dark Black woman and having this child who does not want to associate herself with the dark skin part of who she is, she plays grace and compassion beautifully.
Both actresses who played
Both do. They beautifully, grace and compassion. You know, when you do watch the movie, notice how the two characters that play the mother, they both mothers have compassion for their daughters. They don't get on their case, and there is no point where they're like, I can't believe my daughter's just horrible. Nothing. It's just like, you do you. And as the story goes on, not once does the mother said, you know what, I'm going to give back to you what you've given me. Right. And that is a lesson in our life that we can learn, that people are doing the best they can with what they have at that moment. And the best that we can do is allow them to feel the emotion of fear, feel the emotion of being excluded, feel the emotion, and then deal with it in a creative, positive way. And in this movie, the two girls who play the daughter, the two girls who can pass, they are just dealing with what life has given them. I think the line in the movie was, I think it was in the second one, where the mother says, how do I tell my daughter she was born to have pain?
To be hurt.
Yeah, to hurt, excuse me.
Right.
I was born to hurt. That's beautiful. That's like, oh my, how do you tell somebody that the world is not ready for your magic yet?
Well, what's interesting too is that the 1959 one preceded the civil rights movement in the United States by just a few years.
Right.
And when they rewrote the basis, okay, so the 1934, the Black mother is called Delilah.
Yes.
In the 1959, she's called Annie.
Right.
And in the first version, she's very simple, uneducated, obviously a daughter of enslaved people and, country bumpkin kind of character. Yeah. But with generosity and grace and heart and and soul, really. Right. And so was the other one, but she was much more groomed and intelligent, educated, articulate, not in a condescending way, but she was eloquent in her speech. And I think that said a lot. There was only 25 years between these two films, and it said a lot about how American culture progressed, how Hollywood was handling the race issue in those times. Right. And in the 1959 version, with Lana Turner, who is like the queen of melodrama. Right. And Juanita Moore, who played Annie, who was nominated for Academy Award for this role. The daughter in the second one was mixed race versus the daughter in the first one, it being said from the beginning that her father was very, very light. He was a very light Black man. So that was already a big shift in the inner life and inner journey of these two characters. They were similar in some ways. I think Piola in the 1934 version,
excuse me,
literally caught between worlds in some kind of a liminal space where she didn't belong in either world.
Right. She didn't belong in either world.
And go ahead.
Well, Henry C., well, let's, just on the tail of what you said, we should really, the opening of the 1959 version it sets the stage for the whole movie, sets the stage for how Black culture and white culture were defined at that time. And just to give you a little picture of it, it opens on this beach, and it's filled to the nines with people, and these
White.
people are all white. And you see this
Sea of whiteness.
sea of white people. And I don't know about, I mean, I'm not telling you saying that black people don't go to beaches, but it's not my first thing on my mind when I get up in the morning. I got to go to get beach to get a tan. I ain't thinking that. But the white people, they like to get a little color on their skin. So it's more, but it shows you how the temperature of that society was at the time. This is a whole white beach. And the lone black woman that you see is taking care, not even taking care, she's taking her child, who is visually looks white. She looks white. And what we talked about earlier, brown hair, Caucasian nose, light brown hair. You wouldn't know, you couldn't tell the difference. But olive
skin,
olive skin. I guess because it's not in the black and white version, so you get to see a little bit more of this. So she has like a nice little light hue to her. But the point is we call it an up and down moment, because in the first movie, the director really shows how she's rich. The one goes upstairs and one goes downstairs, right? And in this one, the up and down moment is the mother is standing on the top of the bridge, and you see the sign of Coney Island, and she's looking for her daughter in beautiful wind. Her beautiful blonde hair is caught in the wind. She looks like a model. And then it's gleaming. And then you see the black woman who is looking, who has ice cream, and she's going under a bridge, dark, away from the sun, away from all the people. And talk about a little bit more how you perceive that opening picture, Henry. Say.
Well, even before the opening scene,
right,
the opening credits are really striking. And at first I wasn't sure why, because it's a black screen. Right. And then all of a sudden, these big jewels, these big diamonds,
yes,
right, start falling down as if through water, and then they just sort of build up and build up and build up till the whole screen is full of diamonds. Right. And to me, now, I think being a lot more mature than I was artistically, my eye is different than it was when I first saw the film. The black background being completely upstaged and covered by the glittery white shiny diamonds,
right,
to where in the end you don't see the black background anymore,
right.
Also a very interesting, I don't know if that's what they intended, but that's what I
got.
Right. And then to open up on Coney Island, which is packed elbow to elbow with white people, and you don't see the main character, or one of the main characters, because she's in the shadows under the boardwalk.
Yeah, that's something I just picked up on as you explain the diamonds coming. That when you turn on, when you start watching this, and I really encourage you to watch this movie if you haven't already, is like he said, like Henry C said, the diamonds are coming down. And what are diamonds made of? They take a lot of pressure to create a diamond. And this
black coal.
Yeah, black coal. So even in the, if we fast forward, not to take away any juiciness, you realize how beautiful a diamond the mother was. I'm terrible with names. Forgive me. Not Delilah. What was she called? What was she? She's not called Delilah. Annie. Yeah, the mother in the second. You realize that she was a precious diamond. And that the pressure of being who she was, her daughter black. Figured, being black, the pressure of not having all the opportunities that this wonderful white woman had, and still coming out beautiful. And she left a legacy of that moving forward. And if you pick up on that yes, her struggles didn't give her the same opportunities in the sense of, going out and just wealth and all that. No one's going to look at her at that time and say she's a model. Oh, you need to be in front of TV. She was
lovely. Yeah.
She was lovely, but her presence was more powerful than her actual vision. Her presence was powerful, and everything that came against her turned her into a diamond eventually. That pressure turned her, and that black background kind of disappeared, and she became not only a beautiful best friend, but an integral part of the community that she was in.
And her own family community. In both films, there was a very big difference. Again, I think it had to do with the time. I also think that the 59 version was obviously a star vehicle for Lana Turner, who had been performing since the 30s. I mean,
Right.
she was around, she was on the screen around the same time as the first one.
Right.
And she was a young actress. 25 years later, right? She's an aging actress. And as we still know today, there are not great roles written for women. There certainly weren't in 1959. No. Right. And a lot of older actresses, and by older, she was probably what, in her 40s?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yes.
But talk to any Hollywood actress who is aging out, after her 20s, she had to do something. And that's really what they based the core of the story on the 59 version was. She was a struggling model and actress.
Yeah.
And getting on, she was a single mom, a widow, and she had to make her way and work her way up. In the first one, she was also a widow, and her husband had a maple syrup business.
Yeah, business, yes.
And she was pounding the pavement selling maple syrup for money because she couldn't live otherwise. And Delilah, the Black woman who was mistakenly in the wrong neighborhood, shows up and helps her through a tough situation when her little girl fell in the bathtub. I want my quack back. And they decided, she convinced Claudette Colbert's character to take her and her daughter, because she obviously needed help. You don't have to pay me. Just provide me room and board, and I will work for you. I will cook and clean and care for your child. It comes naturally to me. It was a beautiful gesture. And they, in the 34 version, they became genuine friends.
Yes.
Right? And that never changed from the beginning to the end. Yes, Delilah's character was on her feet making pancakes. It was basically the Aunt Jemima story.
Yeah, basically.
Where they, she took her granny's recipe or her great granny's recipe, who was obviously an enslaved person, and they end up becoming a huge hit. They box the mix, and Delilah gets 20% of the profits. For her part in the success of the business, and she doesn't want it. She doesn't, and she said, Delilah, you can have your own house to raise your daughter. You can have a car. You can have whatever you want. You'll be a wealthy woman. She said, that doesn't matter to me. I just want a good funeral.
Yeah. You see, and this is, you got to watch the movie to see the parallels here, because that's an interesting parallel when she says, here's your house, here's 20%. And Delilah says, nah, I'm good. I want to just be with you. It's the same in the 1959 version when the character who plays, Annie. Not the Black woman, the white woman.
Oh, Lana Turner's character, yeah.
Yeah, Lana Turner character, when she goes in the office to get a modeling job. And she this gentleman, and it definitely portrays what happens today in Hollywood. The gentleman tells her, here's a mink, a gorgeous mink, and she takes it, and then he proceeds to say, by the way, I mean, it's just paraphrasing, but basically he says, you got to sleep with anybody I tell you to, do what you got to do, and you get what you want. And she just turns around and goes, take back your mink. I got this. You know what I mean?
I don't need you. That's not what I want. So that was, I mean, that's the Me Too movement, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the Me Too movement.
What that was out of.
That's the Me Too movement, because, we were talking about this earlier, but once we finish the movie, we have a little powwow and then we get back into it. But my take on the Me Too movement, which it plays to, because this movie does play to females in Hollywood and females just working and becoming entrepreneurs on their own, and how difficult it is as a woman to start a business, because you've got to have a different talent than a man. You do. Not saying that, you just got to have a different way of critiquing the words so you can get what you want, right? And it's all, and I was saying, we were talking about the Me Too movement because in this movie, in the 1959 version, it says what women have to do to get ahead. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you straight up. I mean, personally, the whole Me Too movement, how it plays out in this movie, I don't see it. If you want to sell yourself to get a little bit of something in the movie, own it. That's my thing. I think to say that women shouldn't use the power of their body and face and their image to get forward is a disservice to the beauty and the power of women. If that is what you want and you've made a decision that that's how I'm going to roll in the world, ain't nothing wrong with that. Own it, baby. Own that you can say I'm gorgeous, and if you want a piece of this, let's talk.
Right. Well, but listen, women have been playing that game on their terms for a long, long time. Now, disclaimer moment. Disclaimer moment is that we're not talking about women who are raped by producers or directors, or men who are raped by producers and directors, boys, girls. We're not talking about that aspect of the Me Too movement, because it's easy to conflate all those things together into one sort of banner. What we're talking about is, and she's not a movie actress in the film. She's a Broadway or a theater actress.
Theater actress, yes.
She's offered a theater part. And let me tell you, it happens in the theater too.
Right.
Where historically men in power have said, you got to put out or you don't get on the stage or you don't get on the screen. You got to put out. You got to put out with me. You got to put out with them and that person, whoever I tell you, right? And here's your make, and here's your bling, and here's your diamonds, and there comes a time, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, but we have to keep in mind that this was still prior to feminism. This is prior to the women's liberation movement. Excuse me, where women were entering the workforce on their own terms. There were people like Betty Davis, and we will watch her films.
Yeah, I love Betty Davis. Yeah,
she sued Warner Brothers because she was not getting good scripts. They were casting her in a way that was affecting her career. And she said, no, I need to choose my material. I know my instrument.
Right.
And I don't think she won, but
I don't think. Sorry, Betty. We have you.
But they changed their ways, and she changed the industry by doing that, because the industry that was all run by men said, okay, if this one's going to do it, others are going to do it. This has been in the public eye. People are going to follow suit. And so we need to give them a little bit more power, right? And that's growing, still growing from that moment. Right. Individual who changed the industry. Just like, as depicted, Lana Turner's character, she threw the mink back in his face and said, fuck you.
Yeah, that's it.
Me, will never be me, bye-bye. And guess what happened? What did he do, QueenB?
He went right back. He wanted her more. He
respected her.
He respected her because she spoke up, like, even, and that's what, it's not, I can't speak for any man because I ain't a man. I can speak for myself, but I know for a fact that if you, and this is not to say that to judge my character or anything, but if you come to be mousy, you're telling me how to treat you. You coming to me mousy. Now, will I take advantage of that mousiness? Probably not. I would tell you to, hey, speak up. Tell me what you want. Let's get this game on. But there are others who will see that mousiness and take advantage of it. And that woman played the part. She's like, no, I'm speaking up. And this man was like gravitating because he probably was used to a lot of women just going, okay, all right, I'm okay. And what a lot of women have to know, that the world is craving for your empowerment. It's craving for you to stand up and say no. But in the other vein, if you choose to use your face or your body as a vehicle to get what you want, you should have the right in a conscious state to say, this is what I'm doing as an adult. This is my mind. This is my body. And I choose to use it in this way, fully conscious of the consequences. We should
My
have
body,
that right.
my choice. My body, my choice.
Yeah, that
My
and
body,
that and
my choice.
that movie, the 1959 version plays completely to that because
Yeah.
the woman, even though she was being subjected, like you're a model, that's all you're good for, she owned it. She even chose her parts, her roles. She's like, I don't want that role. You know, she even told the director, you need to cut that scene out. I don't like it.
And what happened when she did? Because right, he was saying, no,
Yeah.
no, you did it all wrong. I needed it this way, and blah blah
Right.
blah. She walks off the stage and she's like, well, fuck you, get another actress.
Yeah, exactly.
After her, right? And the producer, her agent, is saying, oh, you know, there'll be other parts and everything because they think it's a done deal. And he comes running up to her and saying, no, tell me more about.
Tell me more.
So it was a kind of a coded message to young women going into theater or into the entertainment industry. To stick with your guns, stick with what you need to do. Have integrity.
Yes, have integrity.
Have integrity about who you are. Know thyself. And you don't have to sell your body to get ahead. You may not get ahead, but you may get further ahead by not selling.
You may get ahead.
But I think for me, you know, as a man, being a queer man, it puts me in a bit of a different conversation. But being a man and looking at that whole movement, I had wished that more actresses of color had come forward and told their story. I only remember, maybe I'm wrong, but I only remember seeing white actresses.
I saw the same thing, and I'm just gonna be truthful, y'all. We might get a flood of letters after this.
That's cool. You know, listen, we're all about spoilers and we're all about controversial impressions. So it's another disclaimer moment.
Another disclaimer moment.
Right? These are our opinions. This is
our opinion. My opinion. And when as a Black woman, when I saw these white women who came up, and I mean, straight up with you, I saw them and they were like, oh, I went to this office and he said he propositioned me and I really wanted the part.
Yes.
Yeah, he told me to suck his penis. He told me to do something with his penis. And it was terrible.
Look at it.
Yeah, and look at it. It was terrible. But but here's my big but. But you still took the part. Right? Because you still could have said no, right? And I think that's where from my personal experience, is where I felt the Me Too movement did us an injustice. Because if you weren't being forced and handcuffed to a bed and nailed to the one disclaimer, and you walked in, a gun with your head, and you walked in and you said, hey, I like the part of A, B, C, or D. And he said, well, hey, you want to suck my dick? And you said, yeah, sure. I don't know what to tell you. You be proud of it. Say, yeah, I took the dick, I got the part, and I'm living the life.
You got an award to show.
Yeah, I got my award. I got my
award. Right? But then there's the other side of that too. Is again, we're not talking about the women who were raped.
Yeah, we're not talking about
who were really, physically threatened.
Right.
That's a whole different perspective. What I would have, as a man, I would have much rather. And I've been more sympathetic. Not that I'm not sympathetic, because I am.
Right.
I'm in the industry. I see it all the time.
Right.
I wish the women who had made the choice, because I honor and respect their intelligence and their ability to strategize to get forward in an industry that is not run by them. And it's a game. It's a big game. And so if they did make that choice,
and
he had, I would have been more sympathetic than I already am, had the ones who had made the choice and won the awards come back and said, wait a minute, Me Too movement. That was my responsibility. I made that choice because I wanted to get from point A to point B, and I did not feel that I had any other opportunities to do that because of the industry and the time that we were in.
When
we are aging out at 25, right? They won't consider you for a role, especially one that is a multidimensional human being.
Thank you. Yes,
it's getting better.
It's getting better. Yeah,
thanks to people like Viola Davis, who is
pushing
and creating and fighting for the work.
We got to do a little shout out to Viola Davis.
Shout out.
Woo, girl! Oh, let me
She's
just
not a
catch my
sponsor of this channel.
Yes,
Yeah,
she is not, but she could be.
it could be.
So let me just talk a little bit about Viola Davis. When I first saw Viola Davis on How to Get Away with Murder, what I loved about this woman, and now I don't know what was going on in her head space, but I know what she put on the screen. This woman just got bare and just let those tears and she made it okay to be not only Black, but be a woman in general, and to let it all hang out. Because ugly cry. And a lot of women don't share their emotions because they feel they look ugly, or I don't look proper. And I'm not just talking about tears, but even anger. A lot of women are afraid to be angry. Oh, no, I don't want to be angry. It's not ladylike. Fuck it. Be angry, get it out. This is why men have such a clear understanding, and that's most times when it comes to anger, they just let it go, and we as women have to go, oh my God, why are you so angry? It's my emotion. I'm not hurting you. I'm just letting it out. And I think Viola Davis really brought that to the front. Just let it go, lay it on the line. If you're going to be an actress and portray an individual or a character, let it out.
She's a truthful actress. She's a truthful
actress, and she made me, as a Black woman, look at myself second and went, God damn it, I'm gorgeous.
Yeah. God you are.
You know what I mean? Thank you so much, Henry C. Because I think we said this a little bit in the last show, that maybe not the last show, that's probably not, but as a little girl, I didn't have a lot of role models to look up at you and go, that's a Black woman I want to grow up. If it wasn't for, and I know some of you don't like the Cosby Show, I get it. Mr. Cosby did some little bad no. You don't do that. And that is not to say that we love his behavior, but the example that he set in the Cosby Show for every little Black kid, to say that you could grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer, was huge for me. You can own a house. You can have intelligent conversation and have art and understand what jazz means. This is what he brought to the table for me, negating what he did, of course, out that aside. But this is what he brought to me as a little Black girl. And at the time, the only little Black girl that I understood that I could equate myself with was Rudy. Right, you know what I mean? So this movie, imitate. I was going to say Limitation.
We call it Limitations of Black Life because it's really what it should have been called. But it's Imitation of Life.
Imitation of Life. Really, it shows you the whole aspect that, yeah, I'm a dark woman, but guess who else is having a hard time right now?
Yeah.
That's what it brought out to me. Like, yes, I'm a dark-skinned woman, and I do have issues even into 2022. But I think that's what the character Delilah showed. Have compassion. She never once judged her daughter. She just wanted to love her. And I think we as women have to love all aspects of ourselves. And we would really need to really look at ourselves and go, whether being Black woman or a woman in general, any type of woman trying to make a way for your world. Yes. I think we need to remember that we are being an example for the next generation, and we should own the decisions that we made. We should not feel that we've been victimized. And if you've been victimized, then you've been fucking victimized. But if you are going in with all front face and you got your shit going on and someone asks you something, own your power. If you want to put your boobies out there and make that little trip, then make it. Own it. And I think that's what makes women so afraid of, because a lot of women is when they own it or when they don't own it, it puts shame on the energy. Like they don't just say like, yeah, I got great breasts, and when I went into this shop, I showed them, and brother man gave me, or brother woman, sister woman gave me a job, and I was cool.
Bought and paid for.
Yeah, bought and paid for. Own it. And I think women just need to step into that ownership, because we are beautiful creatures. We have curves. We are gorgeous. And it's not to say I don't like looking at men, and I'm a married woman with a gorgeous husband, but the female shape is gorgeous. It's
well, and
gorgeous.
look at what's her name, Susan Kohner, who played Sarah Jane,
Right.
who's the passing daughter in the
Yes.
59 version.
Right.
Not only was she brilliant in the role and a very, very complex, layered character, because again, being a white actress playing a mixed race actress, it had to, I'm sure she had to go and study.
Oh,
she
yeah.
had to go and learn and study, and I'm sure that Juanita Moore taught her a lot.
Yes.
I would love to see an interview with them.
That would be something, yes.
That would be something. And I think I'm going to look it up, but I think there may be one out there, at least with one or the other.
Right.
Because I want to know that process. But the character of Sarah Jane, she over-sexualized herself. She took advantage of her curves. She ran away from home and went into a speakeasy kind of a nightclub, gentleman's club.
Right.
Women there too in their Sunday hats, but
that was interesting. That was interesting. They drizzled it around there. You saw a woman at the bar. You saw the woman in the center. You're like, what's that all about?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Why are they looking at her like that?
But it even shows to there that women were making. They were portraying that women was making a choice. I'm coming into the speakeasy and I'm watching this gorgeous woman dance around. I'm choosing to do it.
That's right.
Story.
And the gorgeous woman dancing around was gorgeous and curvy and her mother, out of concern for her and her safety, because she had been beaten up by her white blonde boyfriend, who found out from his buddies that her mother was a dark-skinned black woman,
right?
And she was passing even with her boyfriend, and he beat the crap out of her. And so she was miserable. She was so miserable her whole life in both movies. The little girl from the time 6, 7 years old through adulthood, she was just in absolute constant mental
anguish. Yes.
And both actresses portrayed those characters, I would say, fairly on the verge of suicide. That's
it's on the.
It could have gone that route in the story, but something kept them from going there, and I think it had to do with the unconditional, unwavering, undying love of their mothers.
Yes, and
the unconditional acceptance of the white mothers and daughters into their family circle. Saying they were never treated differently. Now, because of the status of society in the 1934, Delilah and Peola lived downstairs in the opulent house. They lived in the garden level apartment, and everything else was, splendid and beautiful and wealthy. But Delilah was not relegated to her quarters.
No.
She would come up and sit in the living room with Claudette Colbert and hang out and rub her feet and, as friends do. The other one, the 1959, they also were sort of in a service area of the house. They weren't in the main house, which is fine, except Annie was always seen in the kitchen with an apron on. She was not hanging out in the living room, sitting on the furniture with her friend, rubbing her feet. There was none of that.
Right.
And in the 59, they had a black butler, they had a black maid as well, who had no character, no lines, no names. Right.
That's it. No,
They were servants.
Right.
And so it was very interesting to look at the dynamics in both houses of the relate. Now, Sarah Jane, on the other hand, in 59, her bedroom was upstairs.
Yes, her bedroom was upstairs. Interesting.
And at the end, spoiler alert, in the second one, in the 59, and they almost are identical, the endings. right?
Yeah.
With the funeral of the
Yes,
black mother,
yes, yes.
and the daughter coming back say, "Oh, I didn't mean it, Mama, I didn't mean it," right?
Right.
In the 34 version, Piola, the passing daughter, had to sit in the front of the car with the chauffeur.
Right.
She couldn't sit in the back and be comforted by
Ah, yes.
her friends, right? She had
Right,
to sort
right,
of
right.
sit in the front and be on her own next to the chauffeur who didn't really care, you know. But in the second one, it was almost like she's dead now, and now we can be one big happy white family, and we'll never tell anybody, and you're safe, right? Didn't it feel like
Yes.
that?
Yeah, it totally did. It totally, yeah, we're gonna be okay now.
They're all
All that.
smiling at each other now, and they're like they're looking at each
You bring
other.
up a very good point because even in both of them, I don't remember Piola in both movies. The character of Piola,
Viola's
and
in the first one, Sarah Jane
and
calls in the
Sarah in
second.
the second, and Sarah Jane in the second one. Piola and Sarah Jane, same characters, just different. Same
Names.
movie too, but just different times. I didn't notice that even that character um didn't complain about being homeless. It was just the color of her skin that got to her. Because if you just to recap that they're both in the beginning, they're homeless. They need somewhere to sleep. And this is
Yeah.
how they meet, right? Because one has an extra room and they need the help. But when we get all above that, the little girl, when you look at the identity of the little girl that played Piola and Sarah Jane and the other, she didn't care about being homeless. It was the skin color that got her. So it's saying that, you know, I don't mind being homeless. It's what people see that got to her.
It wasn't
Really,
it wasn't the socioeconomic
no,
status.
no, she didn't care.
I mean, Piola in the first one went on, when she grew up, she went on to and ran away and worked at a cigar shop.
Right.
And Sarah Jane worked in a nightclub, right? A
Right.
gentleman's club, as a dancer and singer. And so they both ran away. They both did these, low level jobs,
Right.
and they were perfectly happy in those jobs,
Yes.
passing,
Yes,
right?
they very happy.
And the mother shows up, and they're both fired because of her black mother, because they could not accept a black woman, light or dark, working in that environment.
Right.
They were both finished, right?
Yeah, and it says, and it also says that, it's not your economic state, at least from the movie's perspective. It's not the economic state that's going to mess you up. It's the color of your skin, and it's something that we all have to learn to deal with. And I love how the mother of Piola and Sarah Jane, and both gave us the answer of what we need to solve that solution from the director's perspective, and that was, we need to have compassion. We need to show love. We need not to give up on each other, and we need to let people have their emotions. Because how many times did Piola and Sarah Jane and both characters just storm off the set? No, Mother, I just love it. No, she just, and Mother continues cooking her pancakes in one, and the other one she just continues in the kitchen like, matcha. She's okay.
You remember what happened? Because Sarah Jane was serving hors d'oeuvres.
Yes.
To the producer, and she comes out.
She comes out because she's okay. So the scene is like she said, like, there's people here and there's hors d'oeuvres, and her mom has created this gorgeous shrimp platter of hors d'oeuvres. So the mother basically says, you're gonna help, and the daughter gets fed up, and in her rebellious nature puts the shrimp tray on her head and walks out into the foyer where the people are. Says, yes, massa, here's your shrimp, just like you ordered, right, mama? And she basically just has this slave mentality verbiage come out of her mouth, and everybody's like, what happened? And you know what I mean? And even in that sense, the mother, the woman who plays the white woman who plays the character, comes into the kitchen and goes, did you just see what your daughter did? And the woman goes, yeah, I saw that. And even then they kind of just give her love and just go, yeah, you need to deal with what you're doing. You need to deal with this. You need to deal with that what you're feeling about yourself. Because when I was watching it, I realized that that's how she saw Black women or Black people were being treated, and not to be, you know,
and they were.
They were. I would have been. God only knows.
That's how they were portrayed in Hollywood.
Yes.
And the more you hear something and the more you see something, the more you're going to believe something. And
Yes.
whether or not she believed, because she was living one foot in the Black world, one foot in the white world, right? She wouldn't even date the Black boy from church.
No, wouldn't do it.
Right? She would not have dated a Black boy because she
No.
did not want to have anything to do with that world. He could not, you know, this is also, both films are also a story of ambition.
Well, yes.
And a woman's ambition.
Yeah, a woman's ambition. A woman's
to make self-made,
right?
Not MAID.
Yeah. Self-made, meaning creating yourself.
But Delilah and Annie were kind of self-made. They both chose to stay in that environment and be a support to
each other. Yeah.
To their friend,
right?
Went on to the heights of society.
Right.
And they were below the stairs or in the background. They weren't, but that was their choice.
Right.
They didn't have to do that because they had the means
to
be independent and on their own. Right.
You know what I missed in the second one that I loved in the first one is the first one made it a more cooperative, a cooperation moment. One had the pancakes, one had the syrup, and they both had to come up with some idea how to make this work. And Annie did a great job. She was like, okay, I got this. I'm going to get a building. We're going to figure it out. You cook this, I do that. And then the second one, sorry, I apologize. Delilah and her, let's work together and make the pancakes and the syrup. And even when we were talking about earlier, the symbolism for me anyways, the pancakes and the syrup, because the pancakes are like a staple. You got flour, you got your eggs, and it could be the foundation, right? And then you can eat a pancake without syrup. It's not the best. It's just like, it's it. But when you add the sweetness of the white woman, which is representation of the syrup, and put that on something, you got something now, right? It was something special. And in the second one, together, the white woman in the second one now, she's a model, she's gorgeous. And I don't believe the character, the Black woman who played the character, had a skill, but she had the skill of just loving and had compassion and understanding. So it wasn't a cooperative thing. It was more of a friendship. And the other one was like a business, let's get this together.
It was a business partnership in the 1934. And in the 1959, it was all about Lana Turner's character, and Annie took a subservient, supportive role.
Right.
And whatever you need, I'll help you dress in the dressing room at the theater. I will help you. I'll make the hors d'oeuvres and I'll do it beautifully and elegantly. I will run the house for you. I will oversee the house staff and all that. And while all this was happening, because that character got much more screen time in the 1934 than the 1959.
Yeah.
The 1934 actress Louise Beavers was not nominated for an Academy Award, but should have been. I think Fredi and also the daughter. And likewise for this one, I think both merited an Academy recognition for their performances. But she, in both cases, at the end when they die, the hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people who turn out for the theater. It's the story, and this is what I said to you last night in our discussion after, is that the broader world doesn't ever see what happens behind the scenes.
No.
Whether it's a Black community or Asian, Indigenous, or in a marginalized community, we never even ask, and some of those things are I think sacred too. It's sort of, there's an insularity when a lot of my Black friends talk about my community, and they mean the Black community globally, they mean African American, if it's how they identify. Some though will say, I make my community. I have a community that is rainbow colored. I have a
Well,
community, and I don't relate necessarily to the Black experience because that's not the world I live in. And so it's a really layered and very complex. We're not going to solve it all here.
No,
but there's many ways. Listen, I say this about humanity in general. There is many ways of being a Black person as there are Black people, and same with white, same with humanity. There are as many ways of being human as there are human beings.
You know what? Thank you for saying that, Henry C. It's very true, because there's a lot of times in my own life where I'm speaking to someone and they look at me, and it's white people will come up to me, and not all white people, please don't say, you don't do it. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the white people I've met who say, oh, you have great diction. You speak very well for a Black person. And I'll look at them and go, well, I was born in Canada. Why wouldn't I? And then they go, oh, but where are you really from? And I go, Canada. Really, I am from Canada. And I've had people in my Black community that says I'm not Black enough because I speak eloquently, or I have this energy, or I don't, whatever it is. And I come from the school that I'm going to define my experience as a Black woman. I'm going to define it. There are some things that, that every culture has, that when they see each other, you guys give a nod and go, yeah, I feel you. You know what I mean? We all have that kinship. But when we're talking about having a Black experience, there is nothing like another. It's very, as a Canadian woman having a Black experience, it's very unique. I have been around all kinds. I've seen all types of religion. I've seen people who are trying to get past the uncomfortableness of me being Black. They're trying, and I really give them the compassion. So I try not to get up on the case and tell them to correct their lingo. If you want to call me colored and that makes you feel good, I don't tell you. But
don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And just as we transition, and like in the movie, you only hear the N-word once, and I ain't gonna say it just once.
In the 1959 version.
In the 1959 version, you hear it, and she gets the shit kicked out of her as he says it, and that's what it feels like. For some Black people in the world, that every day you get the shit kicked out of you because you look like someone, and just before go any further, I just remember a time where I would be going to a job interview, and because I have, if you close your eyes sometimes, as some of my friends used to say, you sound white. I'm like, okay, whatever. I would go to I love your face. You're like, what the fuck?
Really, I've never quite understood. That's like people say, oh, you don't look Jewish. I'm like,
what does this mean?
What does that mean? There are Black Jews. There are Jews, there are Chinese Jews.
Right.
Redhead, blonde Jews. Blue
There's all kinds. There's all kinds. And just like Black people, there's all flesh tones of skin tones of Black people. But I remember going to a job interview, and my last name sounds very white. So I get there and I'm excited, and he turns around, he sees me and I'm Black, and he goes, oh. So for a little bit, I put on those trauma glasses, and sometimes I wouldn't apply for jobs because I don't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that I was Black enough, and I didn't want to have to edit myself to act white, whatever the fuck that meant.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but I remember in the streets of Toronto, and even here where I live now, if I go out at night, I catch myself subconsciously putting my head down because I don't want anybody to see that I'm Black. Subconsciously. Wow. Even when I go on walks with my husband, who is white, I walk down the street, and if a car comes, because it's predominantly white area, and I've had a couple of occasions, but as a whole, it's a beautiful place. It's not something negative, but there are some people who haven't learned. And so when I go down there, I walk, sometimes I subconsciously catch myself putting my head down because my arms are covered with a sweater and my legs are covered. So you can't really tell. So, and I catch my head and go, yep, it's a part of my reality. And a lot of Black people will tell you that I'm not going up in no bush town because you don't know what's going on. And that's sad that we have to do that. But movies like this will help you know that there are different pockets of society that are still dealing with inclusion, whether you're Jewish, whether you're white, whether you're Black, whatever it is. And I remember we talked about it. Did you know back into, was it 19, is it maybe, I think it was in 1960s, where you could go in Toronto, Canada, go on a place called Center Island, and at the front of that island, there would be a sign that said, no Jews, no niggers, no dogs.
God,
So
you said-
I know, shh, don't say it. I said it with an it's okay.
Okay. Your deed. Well, you know,
Capital N, big I. Like, I mean, to me, it doesn't make a difference. But my point is, we have
what's
more.
behind it.
Yeah, exactly. My point is, we have more in common than we want to admit. That we were all marginalized, and what we can do is take a frame from the movie when Delilah is showing her daughter the most loving, most compassionate moment, despite how rebellious she is from her truth.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and this is a universal story. I think that, you know, in the time where there was mass immigration to North America, I had family that immigrated from Eastern Europe to Canada.
Right.
I got some Canadian roots.
Nice.
And, you know, and then they came to Philadelphia. And back then, as you said, the races were laid out very, very differently. Right. Even up to the 60s. Jews were considered a race. Blacks were considered a race. The Irish were considered a race. Italians were considered a race. There was some sort of Oriental vague, you know, race. And that's how it was broken down. Gypsies, you know, Roma. All of those were considered the different races.
Yeah.
And because there came a time where the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, you know, majority at that time said, okay, you're white enough.
Okay.
You can come into the restaurant. You can come into the, you know, the lunch counter. You can come into the country club. You can come into my business. What we didn't do, those of us that were able to pass through the gates, see what I did? We didn't say thank you. We deserve to be here, but we're not coming through unless we all come through.
Brother man,
I think it is, the onus is on all of us.
Yes.
Link arms.
Right.
As foreigners to this land, you know, which white people, frankly, we're also foreigners to this land. Indigenous people, it can be said.
Well, we're all foreigners to the land.
Not to disrespect, because I know that in a lot of Native American spirituality or indigenous spirituality, that they started there. They didn't come there from Africa or other places.
Right.
Yeah, I really want to respect that. But, you know, through science, what we know is that humanity emerged out of Africa, and we all have that common ground. Mother Africa is our mother.
That's it. She's our mama. There ain't no nanny. It's just her.
No, it's just our mama. She's there.
Just mama. She's doing it. And I love how you said that, because, you know, going forward into the world that we are, we have to learn to link arms. And if we all can't go, we ain't going. And that's how it should be, because too many times we say divided we together, united we stand, divided we fall, and that's the truth. And in these movies, it shows the strength of a friendship. It shows a strength of a commonality of women. It shows the strength that even in the gentleman in the movie, I don't remember even in the movie anybody really sticking out and saying, oh, your skin color, except for that one boy, her boyfriend, who represents the ignorance of the world, I'm assuming, right? He just yeah,
right.
but even so, the men were very supportive. They were trying their best to even try to coddle the women. You don't need to go into a show business. Come and marry me. I can take care. And she was like, no, take the mink. That kind of thing.
You know, now he's offering the mink with no strings attached.
No strings attached, right?
I'm going to take that mink because I deserve this. I deserve to be ambitious. I deserve to choose my roles. I deserve to have the career that I want. And just because you're a man, that does not, she even says, what gives you the right?
Yeah, what gives you the right to do that?
To tell me that I don't need to follow my dreams anymore because I'm under your protection, right?
Yeah,
and women are still dealing with this in certain parts of the world. And you know, it also, all this talk about Mother Africa, I also see that reflected in Delilah and Annie, representative of Black Africa, Black Mother Africa.
Right.
No matter what your light-skinned children do to you,
right,
they're still your children.
They're still your children. Right. And that's funny.
And look what we've done to Africa. Look what we've
raped
done.
the crap out of her, took her jewels, took everything, and
she still loves us. She still
loves us. She still says, "Come home, children. I still want you to know who I am. I still want you in the bosom of wisdom.
Know who you are because you are from me."
Yeah, know who you are, and that's what finds it so funny when people say, "Go back to where you came from." And I've heard people say that. I'm like, I guess we should all pack the bag and go back to Africa.
You told me that. I think we should all go home. Let's go home. Go to our ancestors.
People in 2000 and whatever, still telling people to go back to where you come from. And in my smart answers is I can't go back to my mama's womb. She pushed me out and she ain't letting me back in. That's the end of that. But
what if we all went back to Africa? Because that's where we're all from. I mean, the whole continent would sink.
Yeah, that was, and I as I said, there are many, without getting too far off, but honestly, I really believe that we were meant to really roam the earth, and movies play a great part on how we view the society around us. And I really believe that when directors, writers who write this movie keep in a consciousness state that people are watching this who are impressionable. And I know that, make your point, but remember that people are out there and some of them are taking this as gospel. You know what I mean? That we should treat people shittily, and we shouldn't. And I love how this movie just wraps it around. And in the end, like you said, they're all in the car, the limousine after her funeral, and they're going to make it work. They're going to make it work. They're going to make it work.
Movies, that's sort of how they feel at the end.
Right.
Is that, yes, one has to sit in the front and the other ones are allowed to sit in the back. All those little nuances.
Right.
Those for me this is what makes classic film like a time machine. We can go back and we can look and see how far we've come, where we still have not come.
Right.
Right. But that's a perfect way to end this session. I think
it's a perfect way, and we are we're a perfect example of what wasn't allowed back in the day. A Black woman and a Jewish gay man who are sitting here.
Did you just out me? No kidding.
You had me shitting my pants. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't. I didn't do that. Like you had me for a second.
My grandmother used to say, "Honey, labels are for food cans. I don't care if it's about your sexuality, your skincare, your skincare." What kind of grease you putting on your face?
I put that on every day. God forbid. As soon as I get off the screen, this is what I'm doing. I'm taking it off. It's glistening. It's gorgeous. But that's just that's the truth, that we are representative of our ancestors who fought for our unity, and to look, as Bob Marley said, until we are viewed as equal, we really haven't gotten anywhere. And I hope people who create movies will take that in consideration. because it's from your imagination, so you can redirect the world any way you want. And I hope you put love and unity into your movies, just and a message, because of 1936, I want bad timing, what's it, 19, when was he the first, 1934 and 1959, they're showing us where we need to improve, where we need to include. And if nothing else, movies should tell us that this is where we need to put our focus, and that's it.
And that's what theater does as well. It holds up a mirror to our humanity, our common ground, our common humanity, to say, this is what you are.
Yes.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. And we're wrecking ourselves. And
we are.
And so, you know, this is the dream, though. What we're doing here together,
this is the dream.
This family that we've created, we've adopted each other, brother, sister.
Yes. So here we are, hand to hand. See, it's all worked out. See, it all works out. So I am QueenB.
I'm Henry C.
And Henry C, please join us Mondays, where we talk about classic screenshots and take it off the screen and put it in front of you for you to have a more in-depth view of how movies speak to not only us, but our mental health.
That's right. And to quote the indigenous 7 grandfathers principles, everything that we speak, everything that we think, everything that we are, we must be thinking about 7 generations ahead.
I love, what better, that's a great, beautiful ending. So thank you from QueenB.
Look in the undercarriage for the next movie for next week. I can't remember what we were going to watch, but it's going to be a surprise to us. It's going to be a surprise to you. But we will put a link down in the undercarriage below. And please ring that bell and like us and subscribe to our channel, and tell, if you like what we do, tell your friends. And because, you know, the algorithms, we need all those numbers. But we want to grow this thing, and we hope you'll grow with us. So we'll see you next week.